Today's extra special, and I appreciate you guys jumping on. Really, it's interesting. We brought some guests in from out of town, and now we're going to talk to some guests in town, which is in our own office. So thank you guys. Thank you, Liz Mucci. Thank you, Danny Gamil, Russ Lemingazov, and Judith McKenna. So thank you so much for being on the call, Zoom call. I know our agents who may or may not be on today. This will be recorded and for those to play back. So the theme has been and remains to be that past, present, and future. So this is going to be a little bit different than in the past, meaning in terms of when we've done panels. What I'd like is to give each, so as you see the theme here, we have teams on, and tomorrow we'll have mostly individuals in tomorrow's interviews. But we want to give everybody a chance to talk about past, present, and future without a break in that team's stride. So that's kind of the way the cadence is going to go today. So first we're going to talk with Liz Mucci. Second, we'll talk with expansion team, Danny and Russ, and then we'll talk with Judith McKenna. And then at the end of the meeting, of course, any agents on the line who have questions, then we'll kind of turn it into a panel. So that's my hopes in this 1 hour session. So 20 minutes each, 15 minutes each, and then last is going to be 10, 15 minutes of questions. So, and that's my son yelling, so that's always fun. So you talked about that before. Sorry, I just want to make sure everything's is cool. So anyway, let's start. Liz Mucci. Liz, let's make sure the micro's. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So basically what we're going to talk about here, let me just make sure we have the audio done here, and then we're going to open up your audio. Sorry, Liz, give me 1 second. Liz, can you just unmute yourself? There we go. Beautiful. Yeah. So what I did was I just muted everybody, so this way audio is good. So good morning to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about past, present, and future. And during these times, we're offering some hope, we're offering some strategy, we're offering a whole bunch of things over here, and that's why the theme has been for the past almost 2 weeks now, past, present, and future. So not to go real deep into the history because of time constraints, but let's talk about past for you and what that meant as an individual, and then of course as you grew your team. But let's talk about the past though first.
Okay, so I got into real estate at a really young age of 17. I worked for a really big office on Staten Island as a receptionist. That got me into saying like, wow, there's so many people out there making, building a great big business, making a lot of money. If they can do it, why can't I? So I then went to get my real estate license, and for the past few years, I was in between management and sales. And for the past maybe 3 years, it's been strictly sales, building our team with my husband. And that's pretty much where we lie right now.
Okay, so now, and during that past, you've been through some economic crises, right? Or the U.S. economic, right? So you were in the business around the time when the market wasn't as good.
Just literally got into the business.
Yeah. Wow. So basically got into the business exactly around the time where the market was just boom, crashed. So so let's talk about those times though. Number one, were you able to sustain a business? What kept you here, right? I mean, you're here now, so you made it through.
Yeah.
What would you say, what was the climate like for you?
So for me, the biggest thing that I learned in that aspect was relationships. Like that was key thing, being new into the business, not having a book of business at that point, being very young. I was looked at like, well, how can you help me with my biggest investment in my life? And I can't disagree with that. Being 18, 19, 20 years old, I didn't own a home. I lived at home with my parents. So like that was a really big help for me. But I think that's where I learned a really big foundation on how would I be different than the agents that have the many, many years of experience on top of me? So to me, that was social media. And that was in 2008, 9, you know, as relevant as it was then, it is now also, even more so. So social media, being out there, marketing, all of that type of stuff, and relationships. So I never called expireds or for sale by owners. I was brand new in the business. So my goal was connections, meeting people, asking for the business, connecting with other agents, referrals. And as my business was then, it is now. So it's pretty interesting.
And tell me about like the deals. I mean, we talk about how you grew the business, but I think what we can offer to agents out there, one of my goals on these calls actually to describe what the climate was and how you navigated that climate. Even though we're not in the thick of things now, we possibly could be. And even if it doesn't happen, and we're all hopeful that it doesn't, and we're going to have this still very robust market. But what was it like? I mean, were deals going into contract? Like how many showings, like did you do the same number of showings? Walk me through that. What were the listings like? I know that on social media, sometimes you take these beautiful pictures of like people lining up outside the house, but I know during those times that we didn't always have people lining up outside the house for a listing. So what was that like?
So back then, it's really a little hard for me to compare from back then to kind of now because I was so new in the business, but the same concepts for me are there. So adapt and adjust, right? So what are things that we can do more of? So if you're not getting the listings, the showing, like what is it that you can do and not focus so much on what you can't do? Back then, it was more of an economic crisis where we could still go out and get listings and do showings and all of that, where right now we can't do showings and things like that. We could take listings, but for me personally right now, it's a choice. And I have to be okay with whatever choice it is that I'm making for my business. Mm-hmm. So, what can we do more of in our business to be relevant? That's necessarily what I'm focusing on. And what are our strengths? Focus on the strengths that we do have and the things that we're maybe not so great at. How can we improve on that?
Interesting. Okay. And then now that's kind of where we're in kind of the present, so that's that past piece. You got through that economic, downturn. And what would you say though, you were in a leadership role in the past of a company. What was the agent mentality, right? So what I mean by agent mentality, right now, Tom Ferry said something the other day on a video with Boomtown Unite, and it was interesting. He talked about the turtle, right? And how the turtle sometimes, they just they're walking around on the sand. And then sometimes what happens is when the turtle wants to is nervous, they go inside the shell and they bask in the sun. And he said he's describing that some of the agents or people rather are like that now. Now, of course, we're in a very different time than the economic crisis. So I'm very mindful of that. But, how would you describe the agents of 2008, 9, and 10? Because you were in a leadership role. What was the mindset behind the agent, even after the crisis? What I mean by that is like the first 3 months of the crisis, although this is a humanity thing, right? I mean, people mm-hmm. lose their lives out here. But let's just talk as if there wasn't that pandemic. And we talked about 2008. What was after that 3 months like? What was the agent mentality? How did it feel for agents? And did they get through it? Let's what was that like?
So to me personally, that's, and being in the leadership role, some people will get through that. Some people won't. And I think the most important part of it is you personally figuring it out. Is this a career choice? Is this a second income? Is this, what is this business for you? For me, it's my household income. My husband and I sell real estate. We have a real estate business. There is no option at all. Like, and when you have no option, you make it work. You know, if there maybe is an option, you know, and yesterday you talked about it. Are people going to use this as an excuse? My real estate business is not where it is or where it should be or where my goals were for it to be because of this. And I'm a person that doesn't believe that that is an excuse for where your circumstances are. Being in a leadership position, we always, in almost every single training about goals and goal setting, it was always save for a rainy day. Save, and we're going through a storm. We're not going through a rainy day. We're going through a storm. And I think the people who have saved for that may, you know, figure this out a little bit better than those who haven't. I'm glad that I always took my own advice on that and saved for, God forbid, you know, what happens when there is no income coming in and it's out of our control. Another thing that I personally went through on this, you know, whole quarantine was someone actually talked about it the other day on a call that I was on, and it just made so much sense. It was the 5 steps of grief. And although this is not necessarily grief on that aspect, or it could be for some people, it's affected different families in different ways. But I looked at it and I said, wow, I actually went through the steps. And like in the past few days is where I just hit acceptance for me. So for whoever doesn't know what the 5 steps of grief are, it's denial, then you're angry, then you're bargaining, you want something different, you want a way out. Like I thought of that, like, and what happens if they're, you know, if I can't sustain this business, you know? Then there's like the depression part where you're sad and just upset and all of that. And then you finally come through and it's acceptance. And it's the point of, this is the new norm for right now. Things will get back to the new normal. And how can I adjust to that?
Very good point. Very good point. And then now as, you know, we go into the future, and the future is here now. What does that look like? And, you know, as I always say on these calls, we know, you know, I wish I was an economist. Well, no, actually, I don't wish I was an economist, but we're not economists. We're just trying to predict from our field experience. Where do you see this going from the economic standpoint in real estate? And then just the future of real estate, you know, what tools, what will this look like in the quote unquote new norm? You know, does Zoom emerge? What emerges from all this? More 3D tours. So what can you share about that?
So I'm kind of excited about what's going to emerge from this. In the real estate aspect, I think it's going to weed out a lot of what needs to get weeded out as far as it just even in our business, and that'll make room for us agents to shine. I truly do believe that. My business is based on networking and relationships and referrals. I'm not necessarily a caller. We don't call expireds or for sale by owners. So our business was never really focused on that. So our business hasn't changed that much with except with the aspect of being able to be face-to-face with people in person. So our connections are still really, really important to us. We work from home a lot as it was before this. And it's just, you know, reaching out to people. And I think that if we stay focused on helping people, there's no way that we can't survive. Real estate is always evolving. You know, right now we put 2 deals under contract during this. Appraisals happened. People need to move. You know, life events still happen. People get married. Unfortunately, people pass away. People get divorced. It's constantly evolving. So, you know, there will always be a real estate market. It just depends on who's going to make it.
Interesting. And then, you know, I've talked a lot about transition, and I like to use that word transition because I feel like it's a safe word. I think that no matter how you look at it, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, there's going to be a transition of some sort. We don't know exactly where that transition is going to be. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that? Do you believe, right? So keeping current matters. There's that website that talked. It was mentioned yesterday by Jay Pitts. He mentioned 77% of buyers believe they're going to get a good deal when this is all done. And then and again, these are numbers that he mentioned. And from this website, I haven't looked at it yet, but he said about 90% of the sellers believe that they will get the same price. So what that means to me is transition is going to happen because it's the tug of war. Who will win? Will the buyers win? Will the sellers win? Any kind of feelings on that?
It's a 50, for me, I feel 50-50, because it's an aspect of when we can actually go out and show again,
right,
that we will have an influx of people that will be calling on our listings. And
do you think that inventory will start to rise? What do you think about the seller inventory?
Well, so something really important about, keeping current with what's going on is knowing what the stats are. So like last night I pulled